Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Keep it on the book. It's too close to the floor. Yeah, just that. Put it right on the book. It's okay. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mr. Paramahamsa Bhagavad-gita Ashtota of the Sri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Bhagavad-gita Ashtota of the Sri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. There you go. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 22nd day of October 2019 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in chapter 6 entitled Dhyana Yoga, the Yoga of Meditation. And we're on text number 46 at the top of page 299. Tapasvibhyo diko yogi Jnanibhyo pimato dikaha Karmibhyas chadiko yogi Tasmad yogi bhavarjana Tapasvibhyo diko yogi Jnanibhyo pimato dikaha Karmibhyas-chadiko yogi Tasmad yogi bhavarjana Tapasvibhyo diko yogi Jnanibhyo pimato dikaha Karmibhyas-chadiko yogi Tasmad yogi bhavarjuna. Tapasvibhyo diko yogi. Ganibhyo pimato dikaha. Karmibhyaschadiko yogi. Tasmad yogi bhavarjuna. Tapasvibhyo diko yogi. Ganibhyo pimato dikaha. Karmibhyaschadiko yogi. Tasmad yogi bhavarjuna. Ace. Tapasvibhyo diko yogi. Ganibhyo pimato dikaha. Karmibhyaschadiko yogi. Tasmad yogi bhavarjana. Not yet, Chris? Okay. Not yet. Okay, I'll read the synonyms. Tapasvibhyaha, than the ascetics, adhikaha, greater, yogi, the yogi. Jnanibhyaha, than the wise, api, also, mataha, considered. Adhikaha, greater, karmabhyaha, than the fruit of workers, cha, also, adhikaha, greater. Yogi, the yogi, tasmat, therefore, yogi, a transcendentalist, bhava, just become, Arjun, O Arjun. Translation. Translation. A yogi is greater than the ascetic, greater than the empiricist, and greater than the fruit of worker. Therefore, O Arjun, in all circumstances, be a yogi. Purport. When we speak of yoga, we refer to linking our consciousness with the supreme absolute truth. Such a process is named differently by various practitioners in terms of the particular method adopted. When the linking process is predominantly in fruitive activities, it is called karma yoga. When it is predominantly empirical, it is called jnana yoga. And when it is predominantly in a devotional relationship with the Supreme Lord, it is called bhakti yoga. Bhakti yoga, or Krishna consciousness, is the ultimate perfection of all yogas, as will be explained in the next verse. The Lord has confirmed herein the superiority of yoga, but he has not mentioned that it is better than bhakti yoga. Bhakti yoga is full spiritual knowledge, and therefore nothing can excel it. Asceticism without self-knowledge is imperfect. Empiric knowledge without surrender to the Supreme Lord is also imperfect, and fruitive work without Krishna consciousness is a waste of time. Therefore, the most highly praised form of yoga performance mentioned here is bhakti yoga, and this is still more clearly explained in the next verse. Om jnana timarandasya jnanandana shalakya chakshu unmilatam mena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So I was thinking you could use this verse in your class, encourage your students to become serious yogis. She teaches yoga. So here Krishna is winding up the chapter, and he's encouraging Arjun to be a yogi, even though Arjun is pretty much pessimistic about practicing the yoga that Krishna has outlined, which is going alone to a sacred place in the hills or the mountains and sitting in a certain posture and focusing the mind, trying to control the senses. Arjun said that was impossible for him. Please, you're welcome. Please, you're welcome. We're going to have a class on Bhagavad Gita. Go ahead, and then come back and sit. Sure, not a problem. So, as you may recall, in this chapter, Arjun was he didn't think he could do it. Krishna says, yes, it can be done with practice. Arjun says, okay, but what if I fail? He's still not very sanguine about it. And then Krishna basically said, well, there's no loss. There's no loss in this process. We've just been through a few verses, the recent verses, where he says, depending on how much you advance in yoga, without completing the course, without becoming perfect, then you'll get a certain kind of birth in your next life. All of them are auspicious, even if you just begin the process. You'll be born in a Suchi family, a family of Brahmins, which they may not be pure devotees, but he said, you'll be attracted to devotion. It's pure, it's not a sinful family. Or a wealthy family that's also pious, and therefore you won't have to work very hard and be distracted by just trying to live in this world. Best of all, if you're quite advanced, you'll be born in a family of yogis, devotees, devotional yogis. And from your very birth, you'll be attracted, you'll be trained up in Krishna consciousness, and you'll be naturally attracted. So anyway, you slice it, there's no loss. In other words, take up the process anyway. And here he's kind of winding that argument up. And he's saying that these other processes, these all have their place actually in Bhakti Yoga. There's certainly a place for austerity in Krishna consciousness. What comes to mind as soon as we mention tapasya is this famous instruction by Rishabh. Come over here, please. We're on page 299. We're winding up chapter 6 of Bhagavad Gita. So why is it necessary to practice austerity? This is the first question. 299? Because the whole idea of Krishna consciousness, of yoga as taught by Krishna, is that we are spirit, not matter. We are a combination of those two. We meaning each organism, each of us. And we're conditioned, not only in this life. Conditioned means that we're habituated to so many different ways in which we relate to the outer world. Mostly we're looking for ways that we can enjoy this world and avoid suffering. This is like a basic principle. And that brings to mind a verse that somehow has become almost a theme in my head since I went to Columbus. We studied some prayers from Prahlad Maharaj. He's one of our great acharyas. Means he's an example of a perfect yogi, perfect devotee. And even as a child, he was at a very, very high state of Krishna consciousness. So it's quite a story. He was trained up in bhakti yoga in the womb. As you may know, that the child there, it responds. If you play nice music all the time, it's going to affect the consciousness he can hear. So he heard Narada Muni, who's a great teacher, speaking the truth of bhakti yoga. And even though he was born to a father who was demoniac, he was a great devotee even from birth. And so when he went to school, his father, he was ruling the universe, and he wanted to train him up in, kind of Machiavellian arts, how to conquer your enemies and cheat your friends, whatever. And so that was what he was being taught in school. But he wasn't listening. He was simply chanting Hare Krishna in his mind, basically. So when his father first asked him, just like now, do they still have report cards? I haven't been in grade school in a while. But there's a way in which the parents can find out how well the kids are doing. So he asked his son, what have you learned today? What's the best thing you learned? He took him on his lap, And what Prahlad said is, it's the original instance of speaking truth to power. Here's this little 5-year-old boy, very delicate body, and his monstrous demonic father, very powerful. You can imagine bulging muscles, and all kinds of yogic powers and everything. And what did you learn today? So it says, Tatsaramanye sodavaya dehinam sada samudvigna dhyama sadgrahat hitpatma patam griyamanda kupam vanam gato yad hadamashriyeta. Now the word hari there, in Sanskrit every word counts. It's a very perfect language, which whatever form the word is and which word. So hari is another word for Krishna. You see the word hare there in our mantra. So that's kind of the female form of hari. It's Radharani, and it means one who takes away. What does Krishna take away? All our misery. He takes away our birth, old age, disease, and death, and mostly he takes away our heart. The whole idea in bhakti is to link up to the Supreme Lord through loving devotion. So, Hari is another name for God. So that's the last thing that Hiranyakashipu wanted to hear. because his brother, twin brother, had been killed by an incarnation of God. And he was an archenemy. So what Prahlad is saying here is that, oh my dear father, but he didn't call him father, he called him the best of the demons. This is the best thing that I've learned. The best thing for whom? Best thing for the soul and the body, for all of us, who are sada samuddigna dhyam. Dhyam means your consciousness or your intelligence, which are always in anxiety and disturbed because we're holding on and trying to enjoy that which is impermanent. We're looking as spirit souls, as spiritual beings. Our nature is Sat Chit Ananda, eternal, full of knowledge and full of unending bliss. Now, no one can say in this situation that we are like that. There's so many things that we're ignorant. We're certainly not permanent. Our body is very temporary. And there's ups and downs. We're not full of bliss all the time. But that's our nature. We're always searching for that. So since we can't find it in these temporary bodies, in these very difficult situations, we're always kind of, there's always either a low-grade anxiety or a very high-grade anxiety, pronounced anxiety in our material life. So Prahlad says, give it all up. Go to the forest, meaning Vrindavan, which is the place of Krishna's pastimes, and take shelter of Krishna, of Hari. In other words, he's preaching Krishna consciousness to his father. Last thing he wanted to hear. So his father was astounded. How did he learn this? From birth, we've trained him up to be a nice demon, and now he's preaching Krishna consciousness? So he looked at the two teachers. You can imagine. Here's this, the emperor of the universe looking at the teacher. We didn't teach him. Don't blame us. So it goes on like that. He would keep asking him questions and thinking he's being reformed. He was never reformed. He was always preaching Krishna consciousness. So after the whole thing, his father became incensed, tried to have him killed, his own son. He couldn't be killed. He was protected by Krishna because he's completely meditating and taking shelter. By spiritual power, he was protected. So in the final instance, his father said, all right, I'm going to kill you myself. Where do you get your strength? And he says, the same place you do, Father, from the Supreme Lord. Oh, was he in this pillar? A big, I of a huge palace with many, very ornate pillars, He says, sure. Bang! He hits the pillar with his fist, and out comes this unique incarnation of God, Nrsingadev. A half man, half lion. There's a reason why he came in this form. Anyway, to make a long story short, there was a little battle. He's kind of playing with him, and then he killed it Nrsingadev in a unique way, which I won't mention right now. And then Prahlad offers his prayers to Nrsingadev. Now, he's only a 5-year-old boy. He didn't really know Sanskrit very well. But Nrsingadev touched him with his hand on his head and imparted into him this knowledge. And he then offers these beautiful prayers in the pages of not the Bhagavad Gita, but the Bhagavad Purana, which is our other main book. So in those prayers, Prahlad is giving so much wonderful philosophy and instructing us really how to pray. And one of the prayers, he describes the material condition perfectly, and the cause of it, and the remedy of it. So here's how that prayer goes. It says, Yasmat priyaviyoga sayoga janma shokagnina sakalayona shadahyamana dukaushadam tadapi dukam atadhyaham bhuman vamami vadame tavadasya yoga. Which means that material life is characterized by these two things. The priya and the apriya. Priya is things that are dear to us. We know what's so dear to us. The main thing is a body, especially a healthy body. So, and then the things that we're related to. People who we find dear, husband, wife, children, parents, relatives, friends, whatever. And all of the paraphernalia, our material things that we regard as very important. And we're always striving to increase those or maintain those, keep them safe. So those things are priya. But here this verse says that we're burning in a fire of lamentation because two things. First thing is, those things which are dear are eventually taken away from us. Now, everyone can relate to the idea that the body is eventually taken away. We're not the body. We're eternal spirit soul. So that we have to separate from that. But before that happens, what's really dear to you, not just the body, but a healthy, pain-free body. And eventually, that happens that just by old age or just living in this world, that pain comes, disease comes, and eventually it can be very painful. So that's one cause. Now, so many other dear things are taken from us. Your car is stolen, it breaks down, whatever, so that's the priya becomes viyoga, separated from. On the other side, those things which are frightful, abominable, you don't want that's the last thing you want, these things. We can easily make a list. A big wildfire that where we all have to leave home and they shut down the electricity. I mean, we hear about these things, right? It didn't happen down here yet, luckily. But up north, no electricity, right? For hours, days, I don't know how long it was, right? So that's something that's dear, that's taken away from you. And what's not dear is the forest fire itself. So the priya becomes viyoga, and the apriya, the things you don't want, are forced upon you. This is the nature of the material world, not just in human life. Just think of the animals. They're always like living from moment to moment, and sometimes everything goes okay. The dogs and the cats can find their food, find their way home, whatever. But there's also the dangers that come and things. So this is nature, and therefore is shokagnina, a fire of lamentation. Now, in the human form of life, we have various remedies for these, both ends. How can we preserve our health? Well, there's a huge health industry, there's workouts, there's magazines, there's gyms, there's yoga studios. How we can preserve our health. So we try to maintain those things which are dear, using our intelligence. Or we build up, like the invention of the internal combustion engine and all of this transportation. Well, there was a problem. All we had, as the cities were built up, all they had were the horse and carriages, people couldn't move around, it was a big mess, all those horses. And so they invented the cars, and then that became a big industry, right? And then we had to have the roads, so they had trillions of dollars worth of roads in America, right? So there's a problem, and it's solved. So this is called a dukkaushadam. It is a remedy for a difficulty. Okay, great. But he says, dukkaushadam tadapi dukkha. Those remedies themselves produce further misery. Look at all of this climate change, all of this carbon dioxide. It has been only 100 years, which is the snap of a finger, in time. And now we've got the downside. Or obviously the pharmaceutical industry, you have a problem. Here's the pill, we worked on it, we developed it. The first pain is the cost of it. That's part of it. But then the side effects of the medicine you're taking. So the point is that it's just one misery after another. As Krishna says here, dukkha alayam shashvatam, in the 8th chapter, that this world is an abode of misery, of suffering. There are times when we feel pretty good about ourselves, we're enjoying this and that. But they pass, and then it becomes, the natural state is that there's a lot of pain. And the main 4 things are birth, old age, disease, and death. And then there's the threefold miseries. Our own body and mind gives us trouble. Other living beings give us trouble. A lot of human beings often. Or the devas. They're acts of God. Natural, things happen. Earthquakes, and all this kind of. So one or more of those is always threatening, or actually we're suffering from them. So, it's kind of a downer. But the whole idea is that let's get out of it. There's hope of completely leaving this world of relativity and all of these temporary miseries and things by practicing yoga. So that's what Prahlad says at the end. First he analyzes the problem, atadhyaham, in these few syllables. This means I'm thinking I'm something I'm not. The whole problem starts with our identifying with the body, the physical body and the mental body. We're not those things. We are the soul inhabiting a body composed of those things, and that body is constantly changing, and eventually we get a whole new body, hopefully human, and start identifying with that. But by identifying with the soul, with the spirit, and then finding out how we can live on that spirit platform, and that's Bhakti Yoga, we can begin traversing the path out of this bondage of birth and death. And that's why Krishna says, be a yogi. Because if you're anything else, then if you're just a materialist, then you're going to stay bound up in this birth and death. Now, back to our need for tapasya. Tapasya means voluntary difficulty for a higher goal. Now, that voluntary the goal may be material. Just like this Hiranyakashipu, he was a big demon and he practiced unbelievable austerities to get powers, to become powerful. Even in this world, we know if you want to get ahead in this world, you got to get an education. That's austerity. I mean, studying and taking those tests, paying the money, going into debt. That's all difficulty, but for a higher cause. Hopefully you'll get that right, isn't it? You can relate to that. So, how much more that's true for a spiritual end. So the tapasyas Krishna has outlined in this chapter are kind of inconceivable for us. If we want to practice the yoga that Krishna is outlining in this chapter, then the first thing, he gives a formula. It's simple, simplified. First thing, go away. You have to be completely alone. Go into the Himalayas, some kind of secluded place. That alone is like, are you kidding? I can't do that. I've got so much going on here, That, 99.9% of the people can do it. But then, beside that, just sitting, practicing the dietary things. There's nothing to eat, eating berries and leaves or fruits. I mean, it's inconceivable. But the idea behind it is there, and that is that you can't just let the senses run riot. The senses and the mind need to be controlled. That's mentioned in this chapter, very important. The mind can be the best friend of the soul or the worst enemy. Uddharet atmanatmanam natmanam avasariyet atmaive atmano bandhur atmaive riparatmanam. Krishna says one should elevate himself by the mind, not degrade himself, him or herself. I'm using, the mind that's controlled is the best friend. The mind that's out of control is your worst enemy. And the mind includes the senses. The senses are grouped around the mind, and the mind controls the senses. So how to control the senses? Krishna is giving this principle basically by force, by your force of will, and pranayama. That's a technique. Okay, learning how to sit in such a way he described, back straight, and everything. There's a tape where devotees are chanting, and Prabhupada's chanting japa. This is our main process of yoga, chanting this mantra. And chanting on beads. I don't have my beads with me, but it's like a rosary. You know about that, right? So there's a lot of devotees chanting. You hear Prabhupada chanting as well. Harekrishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare. Then after a certain point, anyone who's heard the tape says, sit properly. Meaning that some devotee is probably lying down in the temple, Hare Krishna, or slouching extremely, for Prabhupada to say that. But even in our bhakti yoga, it's important. It's just physiological. If your back is straight and your neck is straight, there's a balance, and it's easier to concentrate. As soon as you're lying down, you're going to probably fall asleep. Yeah. So there's a certain basic principle. So some tapasya is necessary. Now, in the Krishna conscious movement, Srila Prabhupada gave us, and this itself differentiates this movement from so many other yoga studios which don't give anything like that. Okay, if you want to be serious in practice, anyone can chant Hare Krishna and progress. But if you want to really progress fast and you want to be serious, then you have to follow these 4 regulative principles. And they're kind of difficult to follow unless you're really practicing seriously. So the first one is no meat eating. Now nowadays, all right, that I can do that, right? If worse, I'll start eating this fake meat, But it's more than that. It's not just no meat eating. It really means eating prasadam, eating food that's prepared with love and devotion by devotees, vegetarian, no doubt, and is offered to the Lord, and becomes a spiritual act, eating, rather than just an animal act, So that's the first thing. No intoxication. Now, that can be difficult if you're addicted to one or more substances, but that's one of the prerequisites. No gambling. That can be just as addictive as any substance, as many people know. And then the most difficult one, no illicit sex. Oh my God, Prabhupada tells the story. One of his godbrothers, Prabhupada's spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he wanted Krishna consciousness to be spread outside of India. He was really a revolutionary. So at one point he sent several of his followers, not Srila Prabhupada, who was a householder at the time, but several of his sannyasis, to England to preach. There was money behind them. They printed a special book in English, Lord Chaitanya's teachings, very well written and edited. And so they had all this backing. So they tried to meet the leaders of society, the aristocracy. This is also England of the 19th century, early 20th century. And so they were able to meet some of them. So one of the, the English knew quite a bit about India by that time. They'd been occupying and ruling India for 100 years or so, or more. So one of this gentleman that they met asked Prabhupada's godbrother, we call him, can you make me a Brahmin? Because they knew about how Brahmins are, a high level in society, very exalted. So he said, no problem. You just have to follow these 4 regulative principles. And he outlined them. And after you finish this, I forget his name now, this Lord said, oh, that's impossible. That's our life, the eating the beef and the drinking the liquor and the whole thing. That's so, that's impossible. But it's not impossible. It's not. It is an austerity, getting up early, chanting the rounds, being regulated, all of these different things. And there's others, but these are like basic ones. If one takes seriously to the process, because, and this is the advantage of the bhakti yogis that the others don't have, they have Krishna on their side. Krishna is within all of us. He gives us the intelligence and the spiritual strength to follow these principles, which are basically just bringing us to a human platform, And so we find all over the world, you've got thousands and thousands of devotees who were once living in the modern West, the Western culture has gone all over the world. The intoxication and everything else. And yet, by seriously chanting and associating with devotees and praying, one can get the spiritual strength to follow those. That's tapasya in the modern age. Now, this Rishabhdev says, and because I mentioned his name, Nayam deho deha bhajanga loke krishnang kamanadate vibhajanga. He says that someone he's teaching his sons, 100 exalted sons, someone who's taken his birth as a human being should not work very hard just for pleasing the senses, which after all the animals can do. Rather, one should perform divine austerity. Because austerity, as I mentioned, can be used for any purpose. This demon Hiranyakashipu became very powerful, demon even more powerful, by performing extreme austerities. So that wasn't divya. Divya means divine. But the austerities I mentioned in the context of Bhakti Yoga, they're divine. What's the advantage? He says, by doing that, one purifies your whole existence. Your whole life becomes purified. Purified of what? Purified of what we call the lower modes, the tendency to forget all about your mission in life and just enjoy, like that. So, tapodivyam putraka yena sattvam shuddhyet. Sattvam is your existence, it will become purified. Well, what's the advantage of that? Yasmat brahmasaukyam tvanantam. In the end, you'll be able to enjoy spiritual happiness, brahmasaukyam, which doesn't end. In other words, the end point of the whole tapasya is unlimited, ever-expanding enjoyment. We're enjoying beings. The Krishna devotees are the greatest enjoyers. We're aiming to be enjoyers. But not sense gratification, which results in suffering and pain. It's right in the Bhagavad Gita. Because it gives you another material body. Plus, remember Prahlad's verse, dukkaushadam tadapi dukkam. It brings more and more misery. We've seen that. People who get heavy into heavy drugs, no one gets into the drugs so that they become a zombified person who is living on the street and is miserable. You take your first drug because you want to enjoy, you want to do, or at least you want to forget your misery. But it becomes a great burden. I remember I grew up in New York, way back in the 60s. All the addicts would live in New York. There's still a tremendous percentage of heroin addicts living in New York City, of all in America. And it's usually you got a monkey on your back. That's one of the. You remember that? That was one of the slangs. Means that you can't get off. You gotta have. I'll steal. Rob my mother, whatever. Horrible. So that's material life. You try to mitigate some difficulty, and you have a worse difficulty coming at you. So tapasya diko. But yogi, being a yogi, is greater than just being a tapasvi, because yoga involves this opening up this channel to the ultimate happiness. Then there's jnanibhya. So one has to use one's intelligence. Krishna spoke about jnana yoga, he spoke about karma yoga in previous chapters. So jnana means knowledge. But knowledge that's just based on speculation doesn't really get you anywhere. You can maybe hypothesize the existence of some spiritual reality. But what is it? How can we contact it? That you can't get from just knowledge. But there's an element of knowledge. After all, this Bhagavad Gita is full of knowledge when we're reading it. So cultivating knowledge in the context of bhakti is very useful. And indeed, it's prescribed that we read regularly. That's why we have these classes. Then there's karma. Karmabhya. He says, a yogi is better than someone who's... Certainly those who are just fruitive workers, who are just working for self-centered purposes, are not progressing. They're increasing their attachment to this world and ensuring another birth. But devotional life is full of karma in the sense of activity. But it's activity whose motive is pure. The motive is to please Krishna, to perform what we call sacrifice. You sacrifice your own interests for the interests of Krishna and for the world, and in that way you're not bound by the results. You see, what happens when you just work in the ordinary way is that you develop attachments for this world. And those attachments bring you back to another body to try to fulfill them, life after life after life. So when you're not attached to the fruit, you give it off to Krishna. You see? It burns up the attachment. You become attached to Krishna, to God, to your relationship with God. That's what we want to be attached to. You can't give up attachment, but you can give up material attachment by transferring it to the Spirit. That's the science of bhakti. And it's very natural. That's why right here in the middle of a big city we can have an ashram and be practicing this serious yoga. Otherwise, oh no, there's too many distractions. The beach? Let's go down to the beach. No, let's not go down to the beach. I don't want to see this. Let me go down to the beach. Harekrishna, Harekrishna. It doesn't matter what's out there. You're serving Krishna. That's the power of bhakti yoga. That's why we can practice it. So therefore become a yogi. So we should take this also. We should become yogis, but not these dhyana yogis, karma yogis, ajnana yogis. We should become bhakti yogis. And that will be explained in the next verse and the next chapter, which will have to begin tomorrow. But we can read this last verse, and then tomorrow, which unfortunately you won't be here, Marcy. I don't know, you probably won't be either. No. But Hina will be here. She wrote me. So this is text 47. This is the culmination to the whole chapter. Yoginam api sarvesham madgaten antaratmana shraddhavan bhajate yo mam same yuktamo mataha. And of all yogis, the one with great faith who always abides in me, thinks of me within himself, and renders transcendental loving service to me, he is the most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. That is my opinion. What a relief for Arjuna, you can imagine. He's already at that level. Purport. The word bhajate is significant here. Bhajate has its root in the word bhaj. That word appears in the second line there. Which is used when there is need of service. The English word worship cannot be used in the same sense as bhaj. Worship means to adore or to show respect and honor to the worthy one. But service with love and faith is especially meant for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One can avoid worshipping a respectable man or a demigod and may be called discourteous, but one cannot avoid serving the Supreme Lord without being thoroughly condemned. Every living entity is part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thus every living entity is intended to serve the Supreme Lord by his own constitution. Failing to do this, he falls down. The Bhagavatam 11.5.3 confirms this as follows: Ya isham purusham sakshat atma prabhavam ishwaram nabhajan abhajananti stanad brashta patantyadaha. Anyone who does not render service and neglects his duty unto the primeval Lord, who is the source of all living entities, will certainly fall down from his constitutional position. In this verse also the word bhajanti is used. Therefore, bhajanti is applicable to the Supreme Lord only, whereas the word worship can be applied to demigods or to any other common living entity. The word avajananti, used in this verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, is also found in the Bhagavad Gita, avajananti mamudha. Only the fools and rascals deride the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. Such fools take it upon themselves to write commentaries on the Bhagavad Gita without an attitude of service to the Lord. Consequently, they cannot properly distinguish between the word bhajanti and the word worship. The culmination of all kinds of yoga practices lies in bhakti yoga. All of the yogas are but means to come to the point of bhakti in bhakti yoga. Yoga actually means bhakti yoga. All of the yogas are progressions toward the destination of bhakti yoga. From the beginning of karma yoga to the end of bhakti yoga is a long way to self-realization. Karma yoga without fruit of results is the beginning of this path, as I was mentioning, and there's a whole chapter called Karma Yoga, chapter 3. When karma yoga increases in knowledge and renunciation, the stage is called jnana yoga. When jnana yoga increases in meditation on the supersoul by different physical processes, and the mind is on him, it is called ashtanga yoga. That's the chapter we're just finishing. And when one surpasses the ashtanga yoga and comes to the point of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, it is called bhakti yoga, the culmination. Factually, bhakti yoga is the ultimate goal, but to analyze bhakti yoga minutely, one has to understand these other yogas. The yogi who is progressive is therefore on the true path of eternal good fortune. One who sticks to a particular point and does not make further progress is called by that particular name: karma yogi, jnana yogi, or dhyana yogi, raja yogi, hatha yogi, etc. If one is fortunate enough to come to the point of bhakti yoga, it is to be understood that he has surpassed all other yogas. Therefore, to become Krishna conscious is the highest stage of yoga, just as when we speak of the Himalayan, we refer to the world's highest mountains, of which the highest peak, Mount Everest, is considered to be the culmination. It is by great fortune that one comes to Krishna consciousness on the path of bhakti yoga to become well situated according to the Vedic direction. The ideal yogi concentrates his attention on Krishna, who is called Shyama Sundar, who is as beautifully colored as a cloud, whose lotus-like face is as effulgent as the sun, whose dress is brilliant with jewels, and whose body is flower-garlanded. Illuminating all sides is his gorgeous luster, which is called the Brahma Jyoti. He incarnates in different forms such as Rama, Nrsimha, Varaha, and Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he descends like a human being as the son of Mother Yashoda, and he is known as Krishna, Govinda, and Vasudeva. He is the perfect child, husband, friend, and master, and he is full with all opulences and transcendental qualities. If one remains fully conscious of these features of the Lord, he is called the highest yogi. This stage of highest perfection in yoga can be attained only by bhakti yoga, as is confirmed in all Vedic literature. Yasya deve pada bhaktir yata deve tata godau tasyayate katitayartha prakashante mahatmanaha. Only unto those great souls who have implicit faith in both the Lord and the spiritual master are all the imports of Vedic knowledge automatically revealed. Shvetashvatara Upanishad 6.23. Bhaktir asya bhajanam tad iha mutropadi nairasyenam mushmin munakalpanam etad eva naishkarmyam. Bhakti means devotional service to the Lord which is free from desire for material profit, either in this life or in the next. Devoid of such inclinations, one should fully absorb the mind in the Supreme. That is the purpose of Naishkarmya. Gopal Tapani Upanishad 115. These are some of the means for performance of bhakti, or Krishna consciousness, the highest perfectional stage of the yoga system. Thus then, the Bhaktivedanta purports to the 6th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of dhyana yoga. So, this verse sets us up for the next verse, the beginning of the 7th chapter, in which we will learn practical means of training the mind even while living our ordinary life here. And that's why Srila Prabhupada explained the 7th chapter through the 12th chapter. The middle 6 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita are the essence. And that will begin on tomorrow. Just to review this purport, and maybe we can have a quick review of the chapter. And this verse kind of, I was just thinking, as I was chanting Jai Radha Madhava actually, that all of the chapters of the Bhagavad Gita, they end on a very high note. You know, it's very hopeful. Even chapter 16, where Krishna is roundly condemning the demonic mentality, and you can almost feel him getting angry in that chapter, how he's condemning the demons, and he says, but in the end, if one is able to, what does he say, Chivadham Yadakastedam, to escape these three gates to hell, lust, anger, and greed, then one can go up and actually attain the highest goal. And at the end, he says, therefore, one should accept the revealed scriptures, such as Bhagavad Gita, as one's guide in life, and try to incorporate those principles into one's life. But this chapter, it's so hopeful at the end here, because what Krishna has been analyzing, or what he's been outlining, rather, is something that's really not practical for us. Here he's saying, become a yogi, you can do it. But in our daily life, it's very, very difficult to practice this Ashtanga yoga. But he says, but the best yogi is one with faith who always abides, thinks of me within himself, renders transcendental loving service. Well, one can do that from any platform. This is the wonderful thing about this process of bhakti yoga. And we should always remember that there are different lines of bhakti, the different kinds of bhakti. And the line we come in from Lord Chaitanya is specifically designed for us, for the members of this age who are not so qualified, we don't live a very long time, the mind is distracted, it's just not conducive. It's called Kali Yuga. But we're given this special boon of this mantra, this special mantra, and the chanting of the holy name, which is a very practical. There's no prerequisites. Anyone, anytime, any place, from any platform can start chanting this mantra and become benefited and progress. And the more serious you want to take it, the more the instruction is there. So that's what this verse is all about. Is that how can we come to this point of always abiding, thinking of and rendering transcendental loving service? Well, that will be outlined in the next chapters, and also in the other books that Srila Prabhupada gave us. How even in our daily life we can learn to see ourselves differently, relate to others differently, and gradually purify our lives and make serious advancement on the path back to Godhead. And this principle that Krishna enunciated here, that there's no loss or diminution, that came in back in the second chapter. Nehabikramanashosti pratyavayo navidyate swapamapisadharmasa trayate mahato bayat. One of the most encouraging verses in all of the books that Prabhupada gave us. And Krishna speaking, he says, in this process of bhakti yoga, there's no loss and there's no diminution. Now, where can you find that in any material activity? There's always loss. No matter what you achieve in this life, you lose it all when you leave the body. You're still around. Nobody dies. Let's just forget about that. Nobody dies. I made up a little ditty. Every body dies, but nobody dies. In other words, the bodies die, but you don't die. Everybody dies, nobody dies. Wake up when you wake up and open your eyes. You're not that body, you're a pure spirit soul. Chant the holy name and attain life's goal. Okay, that's all you need to know. So the thing is, whatever you achieve materially here, you leave it behind. All these billionaires, who own so much stuff, what do they really own? They're temporarily in this body. All of their bank accounts have the name of that body on them, but when they leave the body, they leave the bank accounts. They achieved absolutely nothing. Welcome, Jesse. Haribol. We're just winding up chapter 6, if you want to look at it. So, but anything spiritual you attain, just coming to one class, just to chanting Hare Krishna, and just being in the temple, you made tremendous progress. And that will, next lifetime, you're sure of a human body, and you'll take up bhakti in where you left off. But why leave it at that? Why postpone it? Why not try to go as far as you can in this life and even go back to Godhead? Prabhupada encourages us, But whatever you do, it's to your eternal account. That's the great thing about bhakti yoga. So this verse is very encouraging, and Prabhupada is winding it all up, and that is that the highest yoga is bhakti yoga, because the highest principle of existence is to go back home, back to Godhead, is to return to that place where Krishna is there, and we're there, and we're reinstated in our eternal loving relationship. Yes, Bhakti Jamal.
California
California. That's where we are.
You know, a lot of people that come to the lifestyle, they don't really have to worry about a whole lot. And of course, you could say, well, yeah, it's all temporary, but things like that.
Yeah. In other words, they're deeply an illusion.
Yeah. So what you may say, as you were discussing earlier, I guess the misery of Krishna, says it, or is it supposed to be?
Dukkha Alaya Shastra.
But for someone who is without comfortable, how are they to understand that? Because they may not.
It's not difficult. All they have to do is get online, go to some news channel or something. I really wonder how comfortable people are, you know, because they may be superficially comfortable, but the anxiety level has to be kind of up there. You know, what about climate change? What about, brace yourself, Trump? Doesn't he bring in anxiety for everybody? You know, what about the homeless? In other words, they may look like they're, you know, comfortable, but where is comfort when all of these dangers are there? And the main thing is that it's very superficial. Now, admittedly, you know, not everybody can become interested in this, because, as you say, the superficial comforts and the superficial things that we're committed to, they block our ability to see or to question or ask the ultimate questions in life. You know, you can talk to somebody on the street and say, look, you know, you have the human form of life, you should try to ask the deepest questions. Where did I come from? Why is there anything? What's the meaning of all of this? You know, how did all this come about? You know, now I asked those questions when I was like 18, 19. You know, there's a certain point in your life where you haven't really committed, you don't have all these things going on. You know, but if you have bills to pay, and the job and everything, and what about my you know, okay, I'm 40 years old now, I have a 20-year-old son. He's not doing anything with his life. You know, you got in this I have to worry about. There's a million things to occupy your mind, both in your own personal life and throughout. You know, because everyone's linked up. So that kind of, many people in this age, they don't come to ask that question. So much of the effort that we have is just getting people to ask the right questions, to stop a moment and try to really contemplate these essential questions. Who am I? Why am I suffering? Why am I threatened with suffering? So much of the suffering is that I'm okay now, but what about, you know, my job? It's all dependent on the fact that I have a job and my health. I just went to the doctor. I haven't gotten the results back yet. That's something to worry about. You know, I know in my family, my great-grandmother had this and this. There's a million ways where you can lead a life of anxiety. So, but and therefore, all we can try to do is present Krishna consciousness as it is. Try to be sincere followers. Become learned in the books, and then try to get people to ask the right questions so that they'll, you know, take up the process or take up the investigation of it. It's not. There's no formula other than what we've been given to try to attract people, to try to interest people in these ultimate questions. That's what this movement is all about. And to give an example of how, here's an oasis. Come here, forget your troubles, chant Hare Krishna, take prasadam, you know, pull the cart. You know, there's always some festival coming up. Govardhan Puja, we have a special, you know, when is Govardhan Puja? What is it? November 2nd. Are you going to be around? Oh, you're kidding. Are you moving to a place where there's no Hare Krishna temple? Oh yeah, I know, that's one of the... Well, you can stay in touch online, you know, yeah. But anyway, this is one of our big, but when are you moving? This festival's coming up in like a week or two. Oh, okay. Well, thank you for coming. We have to stop now because the curtain's going to open in 4 minutes. And we'll have a nice kirtan and then prasadam. And then tomorrow we'll begin chapter 7. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari.